Hello and good morning. It's 8 a.m. live in Warsaw, and this is your global news update on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. While in Rome, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. During Zelenskyy's visit to the Italian capital, the officials discussed addressing Kyiv's defense needs, in particular, enhancing its air defense capabilities. During his trip to Rome, Zelenskyy thanked the Italian government for approving the 10th package of military aid. According to him, strengthening Ukrainian forces on the battlefield and protecting towns from Russian attacks are crucial towards achieving a just and lasting peace. The Ukrainian president also commented on the International Ukraine Recovery Conference set to take place in Rome on July 10th and 11th. Zelenskyy said that officials in Kyiv can count on their Italian counterparts when attempting to restore Ukraine's cultural heritage. The United States pledged another $500 million in military aid to Kyiv on Thursday as its allies met in Germany under the Ramstein Contact Group. The format, launched to coordinate allied support for Ukraine, is meeting for the 25th time.
A special guest at the Ukraine Defense Contact Group in Ramstein, Germany, President Zelenskyy.
It's clear that a new chapter starts for Europe and the entire world just 11 days from now, at a time when we have to cooperate even more, rely on one another even more, and achieve even greater results together.
This possibly last meeting of the format was a chance for Biden's outgoing administration to boost Ukraine with a new aid package.
We must not let up, and that's why I'm announcing today another presidential drawdown authority package valued at $500 million. It includes additional missiles for Ukrainian air defense, more ammunition, more air-to-ground munitions, and other equipment to support Ukraine's F-16s.
On January 20th, Donald Trump takes over the White House and uncertainties mount over future support for Ukraine.
Ukraine needs our support, and it can rely on Germany, and it will continue to need a Ramstein format for this.
Will there be willingness to continue on the part of the new US administration? We are preparing for the continuation of this leading role of the United States. Without it, it will be very difficult to achieve such capacities in this format.
Kyiv's allies are preparing Ukraine for what seems to be imminent peace talks with Russia.
We have to bring Ukraine in the best possible position that one day, when talks would start, at the initiative of Ukraine, on how to solve this conflict, that they are in the best possible position to do that.
We must bear in mind that the negotiation process is already on. A new president, still President-elect Donald Trump, is planning to have negotiation between Russia and Ukraine. And I'm afraid to say that most likely Ukraine will have to give away some of its territory.
Experts seem to agree that Trump's recent promise to end the war within 6 months would have to include territorial concessions. According to a recent poll, nearly 2 in 5 Ukrainians are open to conceding some territory while preserving independence in order to end the war as fast as possible.
Ukraine has become a new topic in the Polish presidential campaign. The candidate of Poland's opposition, the Conservative Law and Justice Party, has ruled out supporting Ukraine's EU and NATO membership bids if the country does not account for the massacre of Polish civilians during World War II.
As head of the Polish Institute of National Remembrance, Karol Nawrocki has been dealing for years with the most delicate issue in Polish-Ukrainian relations, the Volodymyr massacre. Today, he says he will not support Ukraine's aspirations to become a member of the EU and NATO if its leaders do not account for the massacre from more than 80 years ago.
I do not see Ukraine in any structure, neither in the European Union nor in NATO, until such important civilization issues for Poles are settled. A country that is unable to account for a very brutal crime against 120,000 of its neighbors cannot be part of international alliances.
The statement is a departure from what incumbent President Andrzej Duda, once a Law and Justice Party candidate, has been saying since the start of the Russian invasion in 2022. that Poland fully supports Ukraine's Western aspirations.
Until now, no one has questioned that it is in the interest of Poland, our security, to have maximum NATO involvement and an open door for Ukraine. What Mr. Nawrocki said, let him confess first and foremost to Jarosław Kaczyński and say what this very unwise and very dangerous statement is all about.
Karol Nawrocki and Tusk's party candidate Rafał Trzaskowski are leading in the polls ahead of the presidential election scheduled for May.
According to the latest reports, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, is attempting to schedule a meeting with Donald Trump before he takes office. According to two people familiar with the matter, EU and Trump aides have held talks, but it is not clear whether a meeting in Mar-a-Lago can be arranged before January 20th. Attempts to set up a meeting between the two officials have been further complicated by von der Leyen's leave of absence. The president of the European Commission is yet to return to Brussels after the holidays as she recovers from a severe case of pneumonia back in her homeland of Germany. So far, EU officials have struggled to open continuous communication channels with their counterparts from the incoming Trump administration. While still on the campaign trail, Donald Trump repeatedly said that the EU is using the United States and pledged to target the bloc with tariffs and pressure them to increase their military spending. We need to take a pragmatic approach to our relationship with Russia, said Péter Magyar, leader of Hungary's opposition Tisza party. Magyar also said that strengthening ties with EU and NATO countries will be his goal if he wins the 2026 elections.
We must restore the economy, we must restore the trust, we must conduct a reliable economic policy. We have to acknowledge that we are a member of the EU, this club, and a member of NATO, which is acknowledged by the Hungarians. And of course, that this is an open economy and we need to be on good terms with the other powers, and Eastern ties are also important. But currently we sell some 80% of our goods in the EU market. Russia had been here, it is here and will be here in our neighborhood, though hopefully not in our nearest neighborhood as now, but it is a pragmatic thing. But neither the Russians nor the Chinese accept us to give up our principles.
Tens of thousands of people in Austria took to the streets on Wednesday, protesting the far-right Freedom Party's possible return to power. While the far-right formation has previously been a member of the country's government, this is the first time it is leading coalition talks. Thousands gathered yesterday in Vienna's city center, saying that they feared for the future of their country, Europe and the world as a whole. The Freedom Party came out victorious for the first time in its history in September, winning almost 29% of the parliamentary vote. Before being granted the mandate to form a government, all other parties had outright refused to partner with the controversial group. However, after talks between other Austrian parties collapsed, the Freedom Party was tasked with forming a coalition. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has given the green light for Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu to attend the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp. President Duda has also appealed to the government to protect Netanyahu from being arrested in connection with an ICC warrant should the Israeli official choose to attend. Donald Tusk has guaranteed safe passage for Netanyahu during the upcoming anniversary celebrations, despite an International Criminal Court arrest warrant against him. Tusk adds that this visit would be part of commemorations to pay tribute to the millions of Jews who lost their lives during World War II. Last year, the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu for alleged war crimes in Gaza, where Israeli troops have been carrying out a military onslaught since late 2023. Now, should he set foot in any of the 120 countries that are parties to the ICC, they are obligated to detain him. However, government officials cited by the Times of Israel say that Netanyahu has no plans to attend the anniversary. Donald Trump has called Greenland vital for U.S. security. Former Slovakian Defense Minister Martin Sklenar joined TVP World to discuss why the island is so important to the U.S. president-elect.
Greenland is a very important piece of geography that we see in the northern part of the Atlantic, And even statements of President Trump show the importance that this part of the world is gaining, not only in economic terms, but also in military terms, as we see the climate change progressing and opening up trade routes, but also, with trade routes opening up space, it means it's also usable for military activities. And I think what President Trump wants to point his finger at is that this is something that is going on, and the U.S. as the country that is also strongest in the northern part of the Western Hemisphere, but is also most vulnerable in a sense, needs to see what are the national interests also from a national security point of view. Let me say also that statements like this are to say diplomatically, are not very constructive. I would even say that they are a source of concern, because Greenland has a lot of autonomy from Denmark, but still is part of the NATO territory, and is part of a territory of a NATO ally. And having the U.S. president make this kind of statements towards other NATO allies and other countries also in the region is simply concerning.
Europe must find a new political unity in the face of declining globalization to effectively stand up to the US and China on the global stage. However, with recent European elections swaying hard to the right, such unity could be hard to find. This comes from Magdalena Polan for TVP World's On the Record.
Europe has a particular risk because Europe needs to find political unity. And with the recent elections going towards the more far-right politicians, and elections always happening within Europe, and having 27 countries or so to discuss, it's difficult to find that political unity to also reform the continent, to push, to realize that the economic might adds to political and geopolitical might, and against competing exactly against a former ally or an unreliable ally, and then competing against China. So that's going to be a very challenging period for Europe. It doesn't mean there will not be growth. There may be growth depending on policy choices, because after all, let's say more active industrial policy in different sectors can bring growth. It's just going to be different. And the decline in globalization means that we have to carry extra costs, because globalization was efficient from the point of view of costs and finding that the best places to produce things.
We invite you to watch the full episode of On the Record on our YouTube channel. And that's all for this edition of, the U.S. Senate has advanced a bill that would require the American federal government to detain migrants suspected of crimes if they are not charged. More than half of the U.S. Senate Democrats joined with their Republican colleagues when voting on the Laken-Riley Act, renamed after an American student murdered last year by a Venezuelan criminal. The Senate voted 84-9 with 3 Democrats in favor of moving towards debating the new legislation. The bill passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 264 to 159, with 48 Democratic lawmakers expressing their support for the measure. The Senate vote comes only 11 days before the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump, who campaigned on a promise to crack down on illegal migration.
On this vote, the yeas are 28, the nays are 67.
The devastation out there is catastrophic, announced U.S. President Joe Biden after returning from the fire-ravaged Los Angeles. While saying that the wildfires are the worst in the city's history, Biden pledged extra federal funds and resources to help the state cope with the sheer scale of the natural disaster, which has killed at least 7 people.
I returned from Los Angeles last night, and the devastation out there is catastrophic in California. Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They're the worst fires to ever hit Los Angeles, ever. I'm also surging all federal resources possible to Southern California, including 400 additional federal firefighters, over 30 firefighting helicopters and planes, federally supplied, firefighting planes and helicopters, and 8 Department of Defense C-130s that are equipped to suppress wildfires.
That concludes this news bulletin, but there's much more to come, so stay tuned right here on TVP World. Goodbye.